What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I got a little news for you today. Some roster moves that were made, and just something that's kind of interesting that I wanted to talk about. So first of all, the important information is the Dolphins have apparently added a player to the defensive lineman Adolphus Washington. He has signed a one-year contract apparently with the Dolphins per sources. He's 24 years old. I think he was with Cincinnati most recently. He was a third-round pick of the Bills in 2016. He played one game with them before being released, then signed to the Cowboys practice squad, and then went to the Bengals active roster where he was cut last month. And so now he's with us. I don't really honestly know all that much about him. I have heard his name a few times. Apparently so far though, since 2016, he hasn't done much, and he's been on 3 teams. So that, that doesn't say a whole lot of good things, honestly. I mean, but look, at the end of the day, and real quick, just to point something else out. So there was this tweet, let me find it real quick, that talked about, okay, so here it is, from Barry Jackson. Adolphus Washington signing today continues a trend. Okay, so this is important contextual information to know how the organization and coaching staff and so on and so forth is going about picking the guys that they get. Most of Dolphins vet pickups this spring are former high picks, so high draft picks, and who are still in their 20s, which, I mean, anyway, with hopes of more success here. So Rosen was a first rounder, didn't do very well last season, obviously, with the Cards, but he was a 10th overall pick. It was only his first year, and he was definitely one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league last year. So there's a lot that goes against him with the body of work that we have right now, right? So his stats weren't very good. The first team that picked him in the first round last year already gave up on him, right? So there are negative marks that go against him. But on the other hand, he was the most sacked quarterback in the league, or one of them last year. So I wouldn't say that that's a mark against him. I would say that's more of a mark against like the offensive line and, other things, right? So maybe some of it was on him. Maybe there were times where he held the ball too long, but you could say that about any quarterback who gets sacked a lot. But it's always more than that. When you have a quarterback that gets sacked a lot, and obviously one of the examples I'll bring up, we know very well, is Ryan Tannehill, since he was the most sacked quarterback each of his first 4 years in the league, 4 years straight. So there's always more factors that go into it, right? So I don't hold that over him. He gets a pass, and look, a lot of this is about like fresh starts, like Barry Jackson was saying, hoping that they can have more success here. Nate Orchard, Eric Rowe, Tank Carradine, all of those guys were second round picks. Nate Orchard hasn't, done really much of anything yet up to this point. Eric Rowe's just kind of like an average to good cornerback. I don't really know anything about Tank Carradine, or very little, so I can't really say. But I mean, if not that I'm an expert, but I guess that says something, right? Like, I don't really know much about him. Clive Walford and Adolphus Washington, both third round guys, but I mean, like I said, Adolphus Washington's been on 3 teams in the first 3 years of his career. He only played the one game. He's been cut a lot, so like that says something. So my point in that is I do have concerns with a lot of these guys that have been brought in, right? I do think that we have a lot of potential and a lot of talent. I do think that we have, capability, and there's a lot of guys that can rise. But unfortunately, the facts of the matter, whether anybody likes it or not, is that a lot of the guys that we brought in are outcasts, guys that didn't make it in the NFL, period, right? And had to go to like the AAF, guys who have just been nothing more than like, reserves, backups, or like, very middling to just whatever production. Those are the facts. Look, I mean, because here's the thing. when you do an immense roster purge like they did, you have to fill the holes somewhere. So it's wonderful that they brought in, you know, Jaron Elliott, who led the AAF in sacks. The AAF lasted a few months. So, you know, and he didn't make it in the NFL prior to that, right? So it's, I mean, look, there's pros and there's cons, but the fact of the matter is that we're working with a lot of guys who have either not had any success or little success, or, you know, just didn't, you know, pan out to begin with. So, I mean, that's, look, like I said, and then Mark Walton, he was a 4th round pick. Look, I mean, those are just the facts. So they do, but you got to fill the holes somehow and in some way. Now, and especially this year, right now, ideally what they will do is over the next few years, they will build their core of the team through the draft. They did a wonderful thing by making sure that they locked up Xavier Howard, so that's phenomenal. Again, I would have done the draft, I would have done this entire offseason differently. There are some guys I would have gotten rid of, like Devontae Parker, and not gotten rid of, like, you know, Frank Gore, Cameron Wake, Danny Amendola, Jawan James, Josh Sitton. There's tons of guys I would not have gotten rid of. You know, but that's also partly, you know, their decision, of course, too. You know, some of them, you know, probably was like, you know, whatever that. Anyway, and then I would have done the draft differently. You know, I would not have gotten I've told you guys this before. I would not have gotten Josh Rosen. I would have not have gotten Ryan Fitzpatrick. I would have kept Ryan Tannehill, and I would have gotten Will Grier in the 3rd, based off of how the draft unfolded. And on top of that, again, how I would have done the draft, I would have gotten one of the top offensive linemen, either Garrett Bradbury, the best center in the draft, or one of the top guards at number 13, or traded back if possible, and then still got him because he went at number 18, so we could have gotten him anywhere between 13 and 17. And then I would have gotten a defensive lineman in the 2nd round with the pick that we gave away for Josh Rosen. And then I would have gotten Will Grier in the 3rd round, the quarterback, one of the quarterbacks that, you know, was linked to the Dolphins, and who the Dolphins had done a bunch of due diligence on and whatever during the offseason and pre-draft and so on and so forth. And, you know, you don't waste a lot of capital on him. And then again, I would have picked, you know, another quarterback next year, 3rd or later, right? So anyway, that's how I would have done it. Again, they do have an opportunity to prove me wrong and to prove, look, I mean, the facts are this. We'll never know if the way I would have done it would have worked, but the facts are it could have, or it could have failed. The facts also are, and we just won't know, right? Because they obviously didn't do that. But the facts about this is they could fail or they could succeed. We just don't know yet. So they have an opportunity to show that, you know, doing things their way is the right way. And, you know, look, if they are successful, then at the end of it, I'll be able to say, hey, look, you know, they proved me wrong. They proved that the moves that they made were the right ones for this franchise, and that, you know, they're able to build, you know, what they wanted to, you know, so on and so forth. However, if it doesn't work out, then in that case, while we may never know if the way that I would have done it would have been correct or would have been successful, at the very least we could say, or I could say, well, it didn't work out and I was right about this, and that. And at least if we would have done things, you know, my way, or whatever, the way that I would have liked to have done it, whatever, then it would have been different. It still might have failed. It still might not have been successful, but at least it would have been different, right? So obviously we're not having that conversation yet because we're still way too early to determine whether or not this regime is going to be successful. And again, just to reiterate, because people seem to ignore this, I advocate for them to have the full 5 years of Brian Flores' contract, even if we are not successful in the first 3 years. So it is what it is, and we'll see how it all plays out, but those are the facts. A lot of these guys, now here, I will say this, oftentimes we have seen them pick up veterans who are, you know, older guys. Like, look, even Daniel Kilgore, Josh Sitton, I thought they were really great pickups. Danny Amendola last year, but they are older guys, right? They tend to, like, Robert Quinn was 28, right? So they pick up guys who are in their late 20s, early 30s oftentimes. The franchise does, this organization, right? And sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. And the same thing can be said for guys who are in their early or mid 20s. Some of these guys will probably pan out, some of them won't, right? We'll obviously be doing a you know, super evaluation next offseason to see how many of these acquisitions panned out for this franchise, right? And for the organization. You know, but there's still, like I said, I mean, there's still plenty of time. You know, some of them will, but I do like the approach overall of taking younger guys, right? Because they're younger, right? They have less tread on the tires. I think they have more room for error in the sense of, like, you know, while a lot of these guys have been just, like, you know, middling production or backups or whatever, they have a chance to prove it here, right? So it's a fresh start. So I'm not opposed to fresh starts and stuff like that. I think it is good, and I think it can be good, and that's why I thought Devontae Parker should have been gotten rid of this offseason instead of keeping him. I thought it would have probably been better for him, like Amari Cooper, when he started opening it up after he left the Raiders and went to the Cowboys, right? So look, I mean, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens. I hope that it does work out, and I hope they do get it right, but I do have some pretty major concerns, and you know, that's okay. The last thing that I wanted to talk about really quick is some reporters or whatever had talked to Stephen Ross, okay, and I just found this interesting, right? So Dolphins owner, I'm going to read a little bit from this article. Dolphins owner Stephen Ross is staying out of his team's quarterback decision, which, look, I'm going to say this, for more credit, right? Because, like, I just gave him, like I said, I disagree with a lot of the way that they handled the offseason, but when it comes to, like, the veterans that they've been bringing in, I would prefer the approach, so they get credit for this, right? I would prefer the approach of, you know, younger guys that, you know, I mean, the draft status really doesn't matter to me so much, because again, I believe it's not where you draft, but how you draft. So giving these young guys that were higher draft statuses another opportunity, I'm all for it, and I prefer that to taking, you know, like the older, worn out guys, right? Having one or two of them is obviously good, you know, for like leadership and experience and stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I would have kept like Cam Wake. But I do, you know, like that. Another thing is though, Stephen Ross, and here's one of my chief complaints, like my biggest complaints with this organization, particularly in Stephen Ross's ownership, is that he's done great things in the community. Like he's you know, wonderful there, right? You know, he does tons of stuff. The Dolphins Cancer Challenge, and they're all, you know, packing meals and just tons and tons of stuff. So he's wonderful there. He spent his own money to build $500,000 to renovate the stadium. Wonderful. He's great there. I think the owners should do that. They make millions upon millions, if not billions of dollars off of this shit. He's a billionaire, so he should pay for it. I hate that that you know, like, I thought it was wonderful that he was the only owner that spoke up against the Raiders moving to Vegas because of the fact that it was going to be taxpayer money that had to pay for the stadium. He's spoken up against that plenty of times. You know, he does work with the players and stuff with like racial justice things. Like, he's great in all those areas, but he has proven to fail quite miserably when it comes to the football operation stuff. He just has. And so him staying out of it, which seems kind of, I mean, if he is, that's great. I think he should, because he hasn't proven to make the right decisions, but I find it kind of hard to believe, especially because he's getting older, and I know he wants to have a winner sometime soon because he's getting old and shit. But anyway, we'll see. So I hope he does. Ross said Coach Flores and his staff will not get any input from the owner in deciding between second-year quarterback Josh Rosen and veteran Ryan Fitzpatrick. So obviously, you know, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Maybe, I don't think this is it, but I'm only saying this because it's only my speculation as to what he's thinking, and that's, you know, that's all I could do is speculate. You know, who knows? Maybe he just legitimately, you know, decided I'm gonna leave it up to the professionals that I've hired to do it, and that would be wonderful. Or maybe he's like, I don't really like either of these guys. Ryan Fitzpatrick is kind of, you know, he's been on like 7 teams. He's very inconsistent, blah, blah, blah. His stats are not that great. Ryan Tannehill's stats in every category are better than his. Those are just facts. And he did stay on one team his entire career until he got traded away by that team. He was, you know, so I mean, Ryan Tannehill has a gang of franchise records and an NFL record. Ryan Fitzpatrick has squat, right? So Ryan Tannehill is factually, statistically better in every single way. And a lot of people are like, oh, Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker are going to do so much better because I'm sorry, I'm going on a little tandem here, or tantrum here, or what's the word? Tangent. There we go. Tandem? No, that's not right. Tantrum? No, I'm not throwing a fit. A tangent, right? So I'm going on a little tangent here. Anyway, look. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just facts. Ryan Tannehill's better in every single category. And, you know, for the first 4 years of his career, he was the most sacked quarterback in the league. Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't that. Ryan Fitzpatrick's been in twice as long as Tannehill. So, I mean, look, in every single... so what I was saying is, because Ryan Fitzpatrick is a gunslinger and likes to throw it downfield. Yes, but Ryan Tannehill has his entire career been safe with the football for the most part. He averages a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio because he doesn't, you know, just carelessly throw it into, you know, whatever. It's in part because he hasn't had receivers that'll go up and get the ball, but, you know, and he does throw it downfield. There's plenty of instances of him throwing it downfield and being extremely successful. So with this bullshit about fucking, I'm sorry, look, it's just not factual. Anybody that argues that Ryan Tannehill can't throw a deep ball or is unwilling to is just flat out wrong. He absolutely can. He can do it with extreme precision, and he is willing to do it, but he's not willing to do it if he feels like it's far too much of a risk. And look, he's a smart guy, whether anybody thinks it or not, and I trust him in that matter. Whatever. It doesn't matter. He's not here. But anyway, I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he plays, might push it down the field more often than Ryan Tannehill. But if you look at the stats, Ryan Tannehill completes more of those over those long distances. Anyway, because he takes less he takes less chances, but connects more. Anyway, whatever. And so this is what Ross had to say of Rosen. He's competing. That's it. That's it. That's all I know. I'm not making the decision. He's competing. There's nothing else to say. The coach has told you that. Everybody tells you that. That's all it is. So, like I said, I mean, I actually do like that. I don't want him, you know, in there. I think that if this organization and this regime is going to be successful, I think he needs to be hands-off when it comes to football operations. I mean, I think he should know what's going on. Obviously, I think that, like, you know, Greer and Flores and them, you know, need to, like, inform him of the things that are happening. Like, he shouldn't be completely oblivious, but I don't want him making decisions in that regard because he hasn't proven he's able to or capable. So, yeah, anyway, I just thought that was interesting, really. So that's all I got for you guys right about now. So I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. I hope you guys enjoy my videos. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I'm out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.